It's gonna be okay, man. Wasn't R-rated. I'm sure the filmmakers still tried their best to make a good movie.
I want to eat their brains! Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Jaime Fuego.
And we're here to do our non-spoiler review of Venom.
Yeah, but I am sensing the same mood from you as I felt after watching The Dark Tower. Ah! Yes, hold him close. I got that for this guy, actually. Yeah, the Venom movie, directed by Ruben Fleischer, who pretty much the only noteworthy things to his credit previously were Zombieland, awesome, and Gangster Squad. This was a lot more Gangster Squad, if you ask me. It's, you know, it makes you wonder in some ways what could have been without the studio interference. Tom Hardy, most recently, when on the press junkets was asked, hey, what were your favorite scenes in Venom? You know, in the film, blah, 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 blah. You know, give us some details. And you know what he said? None of them made the cut.
Oh, come on!
He totally said that. So he threw the movie under the bus as he was doing the press rounds, which is really funny to me. And it shows. This movie's a mess, man. This movie's a mess. And yet there are a couple really fun scenes that show you what it could have been, which is really even more infuriating.
That's what makes me so mad and sad.
Yeah, you see glimmers of potential. It's only sprinkled like a couple little places here and there. Like, we had some belly laughs, and there's some dope action sequences, but everything else, stories.
And believe it or not, the portrayal of Venom, for the most part, is actually really cool.
You're the expert on this. I am not. I'm going on just having watched the animated series of Spider-Man, reading a few comics, playing the Maximum Carnage video game, you know, stuff like that.
Loved it. Loved Venom in every... guys, for a point of reference as to my love of Venom, I have every appearance of Venom ever in comic books. Every single one.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Even like when he was there for like a couple pages.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I have all of the cameos, the weird Iron Man issues, Silver Sable, like all these little one-off things. The Vault, the weird one-off magazine size issue, The Vault, that is really hard to get a hold of for less than... I haven't even heard of this. I know, it's a big Marvel event that Venom was a part of. Like, I have everything, and I love Venom so much. He is one of my top 3 characters in comic books.
I've always thought he's pretty dope, but beyond that, I mean, it's just interesting.
It's Parallax, it's Venom, and the third spot rotates. It's usually Venom, or it's usually Superman. Sometimes it's Doomsday, though, because I do have every appearance of Doomsday.
Oh, Doomsday's awesome.
Neron is in my top 5, too. I love really good villains, and Venom was like the ultimate sort of, you know, anti-hero.
Yeah, he straddled that line very well, especially the
He starts off as a straight-up villain,
absolutely. And obviously, for the story of this, they forgo whatever backstory of the symbiote. And wasn't that funny how from the original trailer where what's her name mispronounced it as symbiote, they totally they totally ADR'd that shizzle, and that made me laugh so hard. The symbiote, you know, blah blah.
That's true. I didn't even make that connection.
I noticed it right away.
The fans were like, "What is she saying?
Like, this girl is an idiot."
A symbiotic relationship is not symbiotic.
Yeah, and honestly, somebody who works at publicity is really not going to be the sharpest of tacks or anything like that. But, you know, I actually really like that actress, so...
She's okay. Yeah. What did we see her in? She looks like she belongs in a Zorro movie.
She's on a Kroll show, dude.
I
love
she's
Nick
like
Kroll.
she's I do too, actually. I've become a huge fan. I never watched Kroll show, but I'm
Kroll
actually a huge fan through Comedy Bang Bang and his show Big Mouth and his stuff he does with John Mulaney.
If you enjoy that, then you gotta watch Kroll show.
I'll get around to it. All right, let's not get sidetracked. Venom. All right, so we'll do here our overall thoughts. Then we'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, everything in turn. Forgive me, guys. We're still very raw. Like, we literally just got home from this.
Yeah, we did.
I had a couple of. I had to take some rant juice for this. I had to take some rant juice, guys. I don't care. Let him drop.
I had a silver bullet. That's about it.
But okay, so my overall thoughts are, the movie is not good. It's pretty much straight up trash, but it's not. there are like glimmers of what it could have been. Like there are moments of real hilarity, like Fuego says. And I thought, like as a huge Venom fan, I actually thought they did a good job about 80% of the way with Venom. His character did a big flip-flop. Like, there's a lot of story issues here. A lot of story issues. But the physicality of Venom, they got absolutely right. Well, because just real quick, let me finish the thought. And forgive me, because I know I jump all over you, so do the same thing to me. But like in the Maximum Carnage video game, you could play as Venom for a short stint of it, and he was just big and brute and Venom has weight to him, serious weight to him. And so he when he is jumping from car to car, he's smashing the cars as he's doing it. Yeah. I loved that. I was like, yes, that's Venom. Venom would be trying to imitate Spider-Man, except he would be failing tremendously because he's this big, lumbering brute.
No, he's not like a nimble, like acrobat of sorts.
So they got that right.
Yeah,
and they actually got the talking stuff right too.
That was the part that I wanted to refer to, was the fact that I felt like the interplay and the dynamic and the way they framed just how they conversated and how that was the best part of the film.
Yeah,
absolute best part of the film, because I thought the special effects looked kind of crappy at times.
There's so much CG,
and seriously,
guys.
It's like, it's supposed to be so much better than the Raimi Venom, but I can't say that it necessarily.
I say it is. I say it looks a lot better.
Maybe the teeth looked a lot better.
His body, he's big. He's supposed to be big like Venom.
Big and bulky, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
that's a big
as far
deal.
as like not looking fake, it still looked like CGI.
How real are you gonna get that guy to look?
That's the real problem.
You can't have like it would take an unbelievable practical Venom mask to pull it off.
I'm not asking for practical. There's no way that could ever transpire in this.
They had to make him. The symbiote is like an oil slick.
It makes me wonder.
I actually thought he looked. Yes, he was super shiny, but he is like he would be. I mean, unless they give him a more matte finish, if they give him a more matte look in future things, maybe he can learn to camouflage himself and change. Maybe he can like, hey, why are you so shiny all the time? Like in his weird Eddie Brock delivery. So anyway, we're veering on. We're getting too far in depth so far.
We are.
So it was overall trash, but there were glimmers of fun, and I wish they had done a lot of things differently.
Yeah. If I'm in the segues, I didn't have fun with this movie. I didn't like this movie. I was super bored with this movie. Especially for most of it. Like it took so long to even get to anything interesting transpiring. The weird opening in space, and then Venom, and like it didn't really feel like that much happened. And then it takes forever for Symbiote to actually finally show up, or for him to actually
convenience writing.
Yeah, it was like almost an hour into it before him and the symbiote even like made their first interaction and stuff, and it was convenience, and it almost felt to me like it was moving at a very fast pace, like they were just like skimming through, like they were skimming through everything, dude.
It felt so
rushed.
It
really, really did. And the performances, with the exception of Tom Hardy, about half the time. Like the other half of the time, I felt like he was overdoing it. I felt like his accent was weird. I felt like
I didn't mind it. I just kind of leaned into it.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a bit all over the place.
It was over the top, man. Very genuinely. But everybody else is wasted in this movie. Michelle Williams.
That was Michelle Williams.
That was Michelle Williams with a wig, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Wow.
Oscar.
And I literally just watched Halloween H2O.
That's why I'm asking.
Like I didn't even make that connection when you brought it up earlier. Yeah. Like I didn't make the connection that was the same girl. I mean, it's 20 years apart.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't remember if she won the Oscar or if she was just nominated. She is an incredible actress. So between her and Tom Hardy, Fleischer, as much as I love Zombieland, there was so much talent involved. But this was a bad script, dude.
This was a bad script.
Really, really bad script. And a hodgepodge
this needed to be
of a lot of different
universe
ideas.
Proper.
Well, and that's what they are. That is the one speculation that they decided not to make this not to make this R and PG-13 instead, because of the fact that they want to eventually fold him into the Marvel universe. But
I'm glad for that.
I'm glad for that too. But you know what I gotta say though? Watching this, I don't think they could have reshot like 60-70% of the movie after determining they wanted to make it a PG-13 instead of an R-rated. So I'm thinking they had the intention of making this PG-13 the entire flipping time.
No, that could have easily been an R-rated movie.
Do you really think so?
Oh yeah.
Trim some blood and some
dude,
dialogue.
the head bites. There was a lot of head biting. That could have been really cool stuff.
I'm still not sold on
That's
it.
what
I'm
the
not
movie
sold.
was missing. Honestly, the movie needed that bite. It needed
had
that
one
Daredevil bite.
That bite.
It did. It needed that in
There was
order
an
to.
F-bomb. There was an F-bomb.
No, but it needed that in order to really excuse a lot of the other flaws.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It needed that extra bit of like, you know what I mean? Like
Pizzazz,
it needed that.
yeah.
It did. It needed that.
Yeah.
Because as is right now, it's just subpar fare that's just like.
Then, since you're the expert, I have to chime in and ask, since we're going to segue into story. They're folding in ideas from different Venom storylines, right? Like where he relocates to San Francisco.
Yeah, starts off in San Francisco.
So you're obviously
the lethal
better
protector storyline.
Yeah. So you're the better expert to give some insight about that, right?
So yeah, okay. So basically, the movie starts off with a spaceship coming back to Earth with specimens. It crashes. And, one of the specimens escapes, but the others are recovered. Although the trailer would lead you to believe that there's going to be more than just 2 symbiotes. Oh. Don't think too fast, guys. There's plenty of ways this movie's going to disappoint you.
They're saving that for the sequel.
Okay, I don't want to get to spoiler. We're going to do a separate spoiler review.
We are.
We'll get into all that, but let's just say that we're going to focus on Venom because it's Venom and it is a non-spoiler review, so we're going to focus on Venom rather than the other symbiotes.
There are other symbiotes.
There are other symbiotes, yes. You saw that in the trailer. That's not a surprise. Oh my god, there's actually so much to talk about in the spoiler review that I'm so angry about. So, okay, let me just say.
Deep breath,
so,
deep breath.
Here we go. The movie starts off and we meet Eddie Brock, who has a very almost YouTube-esque news segment called, Brock on the Street or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, slickly produced, really big time.
And he's a very well-known public personality, and he's like, hey, everybody knows Eddie Brock. Hey, Eddie Brock. And, in the comics, he basically fingers the wrong guy for some murders.
What?
And
fingers?
Yes, he points out the wrong guy and incriminates the wrong guy and gets fired.
Was his name Freddy?
He was. I can't remember what was the. It starts with an M. It was like the Mace or Anti-Mace freaking. It was something like that. That's gonna bother the hell out of me, and all the Venom heads are gonna be like, he doesn't know it was this.
Yeah.
I have trust me, I know. Literally, I have
I can't even remember.
Every appearance, including the 2 appearances where all you see are his hand. Where one he pushes Peter Parker in front of a subway train,
what?
and Peter almost dies, and it's the first time we realize that the symbiote doesn't trigger his spider sense. And so the next time is when Peter is is standing on the side of a building taking a picture, and then all of a sudden a hand reaches out of the window and grabs his leg and throws him off the building.
Now, is the spider sense not triggered because he used to be grabbed?
Yes. That's exactly right.
Interesting. And I haven't even read these.
That's exactly right. So yeah, in the comics, Venom does not trigger Spidey's spider sense because Spider-Man once wore the suit, and so it's adapted to it.
Yeah, and that's why he.
But it's not only that. It's every symbiote. No symbiote triggers his spider sense. Some writers mess that up in certain off shorts. No, none of them do.
Whichever one we got in this, whose name I can't remember.
You just brought up a goddamn name that I'm so angry about. Anyway, moving right back into it.
I'm shutting up.
Right back into it, Fuego! Okay, so, guys, Eddie Brock is this personality, this news personality, and his girlfriend works for a news organization? Where did she work? No, she works for an...
I thought she was a lawyer.
Lawyer.
Yeah,
right, a lawyer for his company.
Yeah.
Right, so she's a lawyer for the bad guy's company, essentially, and he gets approved to go and interview the bad guy, who runs this big corporation that's sending rockets into space. Her boss, exactly. And Eddie screws up the interview, which you see in the trailer, gets himself kicked out, gets himself fired. You do find out why.
He does some snooping.
He's not a great guy. He's a little underhanded. But nonetheless, he gets embroiled in the overall mystery and gets drawn into the situation. I'm trying not to spoil. And acquires...
You're dancing delicately.
The Venom symbiote. Yeah. Okay? And and from there, it's a sort of, orientation film for the next, third. So the first act is him getting to the symbiote. The second act is him getting used to the symbiote. And the third act is him essentially going after the bad guy and stuff like that.
And this is where I can chime in and say where they got to the second act, that's where I started to actually kind of like this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, once he finally finds the Venom symbiote
and
becomes Venom, that's
symbiote.
Where... Yeah, I'm purposefully...
I know. I was purposely correcting you.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where I started actually... Especially the way they framed the weird, back and forth between talking
loved that.
And the head.
I actually really did.
Inner monologue.
And the head
kind
looked
of thing.
cool to me. Yes, it's very CG, but how else are you going to do it?
Yeah, and that's where I found genuine entertainment. I was like, okay, this is the popcorn silliness that was advertised in the trailer that took us 40-something flipping minutes to actually get to. We had terrible acting and terrible scripting and speeding through everything throughout just to get to that point. And then once we got to it, I was actually liking it. Yeah. I was.
When he was Venom and having fun as Venom, it was fun. Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was the fun and games of the movie. It was the promise of the premise.
Yeah, which they didn't really, reward us on. They gave us just a little bit here and there. But, when it was effective and when it delivered, I was entertained.
Yeah.
I genuinely was. And I laughed. You and I had a couple belly laughs, for a good 10, 15 seconds in this movie.
I couldn't even tell you exactly why. Do you remember exactly why?
Pussy was one.
Oh, that was really funny. That was really funny and very well timed. Yes, that is a genuinely funny joke. That's the thing. This movie was such a weirdly mixed bag.
It was a hodgepodge of strangeness.
It really was.
Work, but...
Oh my god, it was such a weirdly mixed bag. Because there were scenes in which I was genuinely oh, I'm enjoying myself. And then there were scenes where I'm I'm not cracking a smile and I should really be enjoying myself.
Yeah, I honestly...
it was all over the place.
I liked that whip crack interplay so much more so than I actually did most of the action sequences in this movie. I thought the action sequences were vanilla and boring, and then when you're launching...
Well, some of them were okay.
But when you're launching drones at somebody that you don't want to kill because you want to actually...
We've seen that too many times.
God, was it bad, dude? God, and even though there was a couple cool beats, which we saw in the trailer with him jumping off the bike and shooting the hands out and all that stuff.
And there is a big, unfortunately, there's a big CG fight in the movie. Won't say exactly where or anything, but it was
for spoilers.
We'll save it for spoilers.
I didn't like it, dude.
I didn't either. It was such a bummer. It felt so Transformers-y in the way you were trying to keep track of everything.
It felt like the way they've effed up the third act final fight of so many of these superhero films.
Wonder Woman.
It's Wonder Woman. That was the exact example that I was going to go to. But I think that...
I'm knocking down all our decorations.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. At the end of the day, the story didn't really compel me very much at all. I know that they were supposed to be drawing from both Planet of the Symbiotes and the Lethal Protector storyline.
Barely touching on
Planet
of the Symbiotes.
Right? It's probably
it was barely Planet of the Symbiotes. I mean, there were a couple of references that were to that, but and a couple of other symbiotes, but that was it. And it was a lot. Kind of Lethal Protector, but kind of not. The only Lethal Protector aspect was
setting. Right?
It was the setting. It was San Francisco, and it was the fact that Eddie was being very clear about what he was okay with and what he was not okay with. Which
were some of the best scenes.
Yeah, exactly. We needed more of that.
Those scenes were great. Honestly, the last scene in the film was one of my favorite scenes in the entire film.
Me too.
I love that scene. I thought it was great. I was like, oh, we're at the end now, and you finally seem like you're figuring yourself out. So, which leads us to performance and the fact that I do think Tom Hardy was a good fit for this role.
I agree. I actually agree. And a lot of people are going to say he's so weird.
No.
I didn't mind it. I thought he chose a direction and he stuck with it, and it was a genuine character, but the reason it really worked is because it was such a drastic difference from Venom. But what a lot of people don't know, and when I first heard the voice, I was like, okay, so clearly they hired the guy from the either the
I was
insurance
thinking Mortal
commercial,
Kombat, flawless.
No, I was thinking the insurance commercial, you're in good hands. You know, I was thinking either that, or I was thinking the main guy the main police captain from Fringe, right? That guy.
I watched Fringe. Yeah, that's someone with
he's in a lot of stuff.
From Dawson's Creek is on it. I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Joshua Jackson.
And he's like,
Mighty Ducks.
You know, he's got a very deep voice though, and he's been in a lot of stuff. But it turns out it was Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy did the voice.
They just like
altered it, yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
And so it's actually Tom Hardy doing Eddie, and like all that
That's
stuff.
That's actually cool.
It is. I enjoyed that.
I did not know that aspect.
Yeah.
That's
Knowing that going in, I was like, okay, all right, that's
a part
cool.
of himself, and you know that makes sense.
It is. It does. It was just it was a variation of Eddie. It would make sense because he would only have Eddie's voice to draw off of, really.
Yeah. He did go a little method, but you know what? I mean, whether it's jumping in lobster tanks or eating trash or whatever, I mean, at the end of the day, I liked what he did.
I did too.
I just thought they gave him a shit script.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But there are a lot of comic throwbacks. I'll go over some of those in the spoilers.
Yeah.
His girl Anne Weying.
Yeah, she's the Venom whatever.
In the comics, she does get the symbiote at one point.
Spoiler.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. For the comics, spoilers for the comics. Yeah, she does get the symbiote at one point. Who knows what happens in the future? But yeah. So I guess Michelle Williams was. I think she was serviceable as Anne. I don't think she knocked the house down or anything like that.
That's the best word we can use for her. She was serviceable. She was just okay.
Yeah.
She was just okay. I've seen her be so much better in so much more high profile stuff. I would say she went through the motions in this. She
definitely
was
went through the
trying to
motions.
be funny at times, and it didn't always nail. And I didn't even really gain her. I just buy into her loving chemistry.
I didn't buy into it a huge amount either.
With Brock, I didn't.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I bought more so into her and the Doctor.
I did too. Honestly, I kind of did too. But the other thing is, I will say the bad guy.
So much
the bad guy, I thought needed to be someone else. They needed a Michael Sheen, like the bad guy from the third Underworld movie, the head of the Lycans. Like someone really charismatic that could really pull off some of the dialogue. This guy was not intimidating.
Yeah.
He was not intimidating as the bad guy, no matter what dialogue they gave him. But if you had given the exact same dialogue to a more seasoned, just more overall imposing actor, it would have fared way better.
Anybody British would have been great.
Anybody British would have done better. Tom Hiddleston would have been great, but no, you can't do that because he's part of the Marvel U as Loki.
No, who was the guy who was the bad guy in Rogue One, and he's apparently the new sheriff of Nottingham, and that actor,
that guy that was in, he was also the bad guy in Ready Player One.
He's a British bad guy in pretty much everything he does.
Yeah, that's all he ever does. Something like that would have been better because this guy was not. He was not fun to watch. He was not unnerving. He was kind of a little Weasley.
No, and honestly, there was no foreboding villainous presence in this movie of any kind.
No.
None.
Not even towards the end.
Donuts, man.
Not even towards the end when they were trying to get something like that going.
Yeah, exactly. Where there's more of a symbiote presence, without...
Well, yeah, we can, again, in the trailers it was spoiled that there's at least one other one.
It showed a fight between two different ones.
Two different symbiotes, yeah. That happens, guys. That does happen. That is in the movie.
We actually freeze-framed it when we did the trailer.
We did. We went back and forth, actually.
We did a little emotion. So there's actually going to be
a fight. And not only that, you picked out exactly who the people were. We were correct about that. So.
Yeah, they shouldn't have put that in.
They really shouldn't have. But anyway, at the time it looked cool. I was like, oh, cool. And then in practice... Yeah, the fight was really.
So is this a good segue into effects then?
Effects, yes. Now, again, sometimes Venom was great. Sometimes it was great, but when it was a lot and Venom had to be moving very rapidly, I liked when he was like running up the building again, and when he was jumping from car to car. I liked that, but when it involved
all the hand goo shoots and stuff like
when
that,
it involved
badass.
More than just him on screen is when I started to lose it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I liked him a lot. I liked him.
I would quote Newt from Aliens and say, mostly
he was good.
Mostly he looked good.
Mostly.
But I really did not like the look of the symbiotes when they weren't attached to somebody, like they looked insane.
I thought they looked okay.
Yeah, I guess they looked okay.
I thought it was it was actually very appropriate for what the symbiotes, what I always thought the symbiotes would be. Actually, I will say, I actually really liked it. I thought they could have perhaps been a little slimier, a little bit more, if I had to put a fine point on it, Hexus in his oil form in Fern Gully. That's kind of how the symbiote would move, would be like slinking along.
Well, I'll quote,
and this was more like, it reminded me a little bit of those kids' toys. That's the ball surrounded by suction cups, right? So every time it moved, it's like, like as it moved along.
I always thought of like a mix between Gak and Play-Doh. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's just me.
Kinda.
But, yeah. Besides the fact that half of the CGI looked good and half the CGI looked bad, I do think that the film was very well shot. I will give it that, especially the fact that they obviously shot in San Francisco. There's a lot of beautiful locales. It's a very pretty city. All the shots of the Golden Gate Bridge, except for the one where he's on the phone with the chick, and I was totally positive that was green screen.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, where he's just like standing on the bridge and stuff, and they got the red little trim there and stuff, and then the background doesn't look very legit. But I mean, I don't know. There was a good look behind this film, but it's just really tough to satisfy somebody like me with the look of an alien that's supposed to be so ferocious and all these other things. But you can't go practical with Venom, as you stressed earlier.
No,
you just cannot do that.
There's
so
no way to do it.
It's a really hard character to adapt into, like, the live action format for that sheer fact. Yeah, it truly is. But half the time, I really liked it. More so than anything, I enjoyed where he had the scenes where it would like jump out and then sit there and like talk to him and stuff. Those are my favorite scenes in the entire film.
Yeah, they were
really fun.
Because
I love the interplay. I thought the look was effective enough, and I was able to dispel my disbelief or whatever in those particular instances, more so than any others. When it went to action, silliness, whatever, all the car jumping and stuff that you mentioned, and I was just like, but music, anything memorable to mention?
Not really,
not so
music,
much.
no.
But as far as sound design, though, I did enjoy the fact that
the voice stuff.
Yeah. The voice stuff was really what stood out. More so than anything in this film was the way that they mixed that, the way that they just kind of had that dynamic going, and it could have been done poorly, but it was framed well, it was mixed well, it sounded good, and it's still, for me, the best parts of the entire narrative of this film was just that little audio back and forth, the internal monologue with him, and
that back and forth was way more interesting than any of the other back and forths in the movie.
Anything in this movie.
All right, let's call the non-spoiler there. We'll get into spoilers in our spoiler review. So if you guys have seen it and you want to hear that, jump over. If you just don't care and you want to be spoiled, jump over. But for now, first, before we sign off, let me say thank you very much to our patrons. Please click the link in the description box down below if you want to become a patron. You can select movies for us to review. You can join in on live streams, both the main show and Hail to Stephen King streams, stuff like that. We're working it all out. So, jump on our Patreon if you want to control some content. But until next time, guys, let us know in the comments down below what you thought of Venom. Don't spoil stuff here. Spoil stuff in the spoiler review. But let us know your overall thoughts. I'd greatly appreciate that. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime, Fuego!
And remember, stay scared!